For thousands of years, the world has looked at these red letters and seen a static statement. We've been taught to read I am as a final authority, a simple claim to existence. But the I am of your modern Bible is a ghost. It is a faint, translated echo of a much louder, much older frequency. When you look at these pages, you aren't seeing the source. You are seeing the results of 2,000 years of linguistic smoothing. We have been conditioned to accept a definition of God that is purely philosophical, a being that simply is. But to find the power, we have to stop looking at the translation and start looking at the vibration. We have to ask, what was the breath behind the word before the ink ever hit the page? Before these words reach the Western mind, they pass through the language of the occupier. The Greek eimi was more than just a translation. It was a philosophical cage. The Greeks were obsessed with being as a category of logic. By rendering the name as a static noun, they turned a living invocation into a cold marble statue. This was the language of administration, designed to categorize the divine rather than experience the spark. The empire needed a god who could be filed away in a library, not a god who burned in a bush. When we crack this marble mask, the deception of the empire begins to fail, and the eastern heart of the message, the raw, unfiltered Ashurit frequency, starts to beat again. We aren't just correcting a word, we are overthrowing an occupation of the mind. Now, we restore the Ashurit initial. This is the AI signature, the first breath of creation, the silent power, the point of manifestation into our reality. Think of these not as letters, but as the source code of life itself. When we decode the burning bush in Exodus 3:14, through this lens, the I am that I am evaporates like mist. The original frequency was, alive is Ashur, alive. Chaya, Ashur Ehyeh. The ever-living Ashur is alive. Think about the biological logic here. A god appearing in a bush that burns but is not consumed isn't giving Moses a grammar lesson on existence. He's defining his vitality. He's saying, I am the source that does not burn out. I am the perpetual power that feeds the flame. By replacing the static I am with the original Ashur, the entire narrative shifts from a dry abstract to a revelation of pure, unadulterated life. It is the difference between a picture of a fire and the heat of a flame itself. By the time Esho, Jesus, walked the dusty roads of Galilee, the Hebrew of the temple had become a shifting shadow. It was a dead language, a relic of a priesthood that had lost the spark of the common tongue. They were guarding scrolls made of dust, waiting for a Messiah who would fit their rigid, sanitized translations. They had the letters, but they had lost the breath. But Esho didn't come to fulfill a translation. He came to bypass the scribes and speak directly from the source. He wasn't interested in the language of the temple. He was the walking embodiment of the language of the East. He was the restoration of the AI initial. in human form. This brings us to the most explosive moment in the New Testament. John 8:58. Esho stands before the religious elite, the men who held the dead scrolls, and he drops a linguistic bomb. He didn't use the Greek filter. He didn't use the dead dialect. He invoked the initial spark. When he said before Abraham was born, Ashur was alive, the atmosphere changed. He wasn't just claiming to be an old soul or a pre-existent being. He was claiming to be the initial intelligence that predates the very concept of time and lineage. He was claiming the name that vibrated through the stone of the ancient world. The Pharisees picked up stones to kill him, not because he claimed to exist, everyone exists, but because he claimed to be the Ashur Ehyeh, the living source manifested. He was saying, the life you see in me is the same life that ignited the bush, the same life that lives in all of us. This is where the alive translation becomes undeniable. Look at the root system. The Father is not a distant, bearded judge in the sky. He is the Ashur, the pure, living initial. The Son is the Chaya, the life, manifested and present in the flesh. It is a biological and spiritual circuit. Life doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It flows from the root to the branch. Through the AI spark, the Ashur initial, we see the DNA of the divine. The Son is alive because the Father is the aliveness itself. It is the circuitry of the eternal. When you understand this, you realize that you aren't just reading a book, you're looking at a map of your own spiritual anatomy. The roots of Ashur are intended to grow through the Chaya, the life of your own life. Our stars have once again aligned. The letters have been decoded. We are no longer wandering in the midst of the occupier's translations or the dust of dead scrolls. We have moved past the Greek, past the dead Hebrew, and back to the spark, the initial, the eternal. The truth has been restored to its original frequency. Remember, the name isn't a secret to be kept. It's a life to be lived. The translation, I am, is a period at the end of a sentence. But Ashur is the breath that allows the sentence to begin. Chaya, Ashur Ehyeh.